Hi everyone, Jackie here. So today is June 2nd, 2022. Today is the second day of my virtual spirit walk. And in this video I'll explain what the spirit walk is and a little bit about why I'm doing it. If you're a Franglophone like I am and you happen to catch yesterday's video on June 1st in French, today's essentially the same thing but just in English. If you remember when I did this virtual spirit walk in 2020, I was doing a French and English video every day, and that's kind of not really sustainable right now energy wise, so I'm going to alternate. And so the spirit walk, if you're kind of new to this or if you don't remember from previous times, the spirit walk is something that's run by the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal every year. I think they've been doing it for almost 10 years, if not more. And before the pandemic, I participated about 4 or 5 times before the pandemic, and we would get together usually on a Saturday mid-June and walk on Mount Royal. And when the pandemic hit, and in those early times when people couldn't even gather outdoors, remember those days? They did a virtual spirit walk in the fall, and they invited walkers to walk on their own and take pictures and post them on Instagram, Facebook, and things like that. And that's when I start. And there was a range of dates, like there was a 10-day range, and I decided to pledge to walk every single day, and I was making these little videos. So I decided to do that again. This time there is an actual in-person walk on June 11th on Mount Royal, and I'm not available that day. Fortunately, they still have the option of doing a virtual spirit walk, so here I am. And it's the virtual spirit walk is, again, they're inviting people to take just one walk with intention, right? A lot of us walk or cycle. You could rollerblade, and one time between June 1st and June 11th to do it with intention and, taking the pics and posting them with the hashtags and everything. And you can get all that information on their page, which is where you would also go to make a donation if you don't want to join as a walker or roller or cycler, and you want to support my walk. On that page, you're going to see all the information. And you can join there too if you want to be a walker. So from June 11th, 1st to the 11th is the virtual spirit walk, and I have once again pledged to walk every day. I'm walking at least 5 kilometers a day, not necessarily in one shot, and on most days I'm going to try to do these little videos to talk about some of the issues. I know a lot of people who are friends with me. I mean, a lot of you are Indigenous, and you're intimately aware with all the issues. And those of you who are non-Indigenous, a lot of folks that I work with have already done a lot of work to inform themselves. So for some of you, this is not new. So just, these videos are really aimed at people who are kind of new to the topic, particularly settlers who maybe have good intentions and want to learn a little bit more. So just keep that in mind, right? Sorry, I'm walking over the Décarie Expressway. It's very loud. So I'm just it's sunny and I can't see the pause button, and I don't want to stop and have to start over. So just imagine some elevator music in your head for about 10 more seconds, if you will. Urban life. You gotta love it, or not. Anyway, mixed feelings here about urban life, as many of you who know me know. Okay, so better now. So this first video, I'll just kind of again inform you a little bit about why this walk is happening, what the funds are going to be used for, and very quickly touch on the importance of solidarity work and why I do it and why I think that everybody should be doing it. So, Native Women's Shelter of Montreal, obviously they operate throughout the year. Very important Indigenous-led organization that serves Indigenous women, some of whom have kids, some of whom don't, who are often in precarious situations due to, a few centuries of colonization. And if that link is not clear, if you're really new to this and you're like, I still don't understand why there's so many issues and what does that have to do with me, and there'll be a couple of more videos in the next 10 days about that to help inform you, and you can always write to me and I can send you some links. Okay. So it's an important service here in the city, and you can learn about, if you Google Naguset, Nakuset, there's tons of video interviews and written interviews with Naguset, who's the executive director of the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal. Phenomenal person. I have so much admiration for Naguset and her whole team. She doesn't do this alone, but she really spearheads a lot of things. It's a very powerful voice. And so it's an important service here in this city, and they're involved in other things too, like the Cabot Square Project and the Resilience Montreal. So very multi-pronged work. Now, the annual Spirit Walk is used to raise funds typically for specific projects. Like a lot of nonprofit organizations, these are, our governments, whether it's federal, provincial, municipal, do not support them enough. It's ridiculous, and it's because of these different governments, colonial governments, that so many Indigenous people are in precarious situations in the first place, So anyway, I'm going on a tangent again. Spirit Walk. So in addition to the day-to-day work that the shelter does, they have special projects. So in previous years, the Spirit Walk helped raise funds for retreats for the clients of the shelter, and the women and children that use the services of the shelter, and they would go to a retreat out in the woods and have traditional foods and healing ceremonies and things like that, which is really important for a lot of people. This year, and this is really exciting, so Naguset, there's a lot of interviews with Naguset where she talks about the need for second stage support for women who experience financial precarity, homelessness, things like that. And, because you can have a shelter and you can put people up for a few days, a few weeks, a few months, and then what, right? People still need support. You can't just say, okay, you're done here, and go back out into the world and sink or swim. So there's a second stage housing project, and you can read more about this on the donation page, which is the same page where you could join as a walker or roller or whatever, and you can kind of read more information about that there. It would be, from what I remember, a 23-unit building for second stage support. So with apartments, different size apartments for the women. Again, some of them have kids, some of them don't. And so that they're not just kind of left to their own devices after that first stage support. People still need all kinds of support, maybe, accessing resources in the city, sometimes having to deal with the justice system or medical system, education, health, social workers, things like that. So it's really important work, and they've been pushing for a long time to get funding for this from the governments, and it's really hard. So this year's Spirit Walk will support that. And the other thing that the Spirit Walk is going to help raise funds for is a health center, a pediatric center for Indigenous kids, run by Indigenous people. So, Indigenous people of all ages who need medical support often wind up in these colonial health centers, hospitals, and whatnot that are very colonial. And, well, I just said that, but we know, news for the past few years, we know there's systemic racism in the health field among every other aspect of our society. So having a center for Indigenous kids where they could access medical care but that is culturally informed is really going to make a difference in a lot of lives. So that's why I'm walking, and it's really an honor for me as somebody who's mostly a settler descent to be able to participate in this kind of solidarity work. We hear a lot of land acknowledgements. You go to events, land acknowledgement, we acknowledge, blah, 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 and there's a lot of criticisms. They're not inherently bad, but there's a lot of criticism that if that's all you do, well, then what, right? So it's the analogy that I've seen a lot of Indigenous people make, and as well as some settler allies make, is that it's like if I come over and I steal something of yours, like, I don't know, I steal your car, and then I drive around with it, I pass by you on the street, roll down the window, hey, I acknowledge that this was your car, and I stole your car. And I just drive off and leave you in the dust. That doesn't help you, right? So these land acknowledgements on their own don't help Indigenous people. We have to go further. So I do, like when I work in education, sometimes I introduce events or whatever, and when I teach, I do this in my classes. I'll acknowledge, I live and work in so-called Montreal. It's this unceded land. We commonly acknowledge the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation and their long-standing ties to this land. This is part of their traditional homelands. Also acknowledging the Anishinaabe Nation that also has deep, long-standing and ongoing ties to these lands. Acknowledging this place called Tiohtià:ke in Kanien'kehá:ka and Muniang in Anishinaabe-Mowin. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the names. Neither of these are my language. This place has long been and continues to be a gathering place for Indigenous peoples from all directions, and that's really important because that continues today. And the work I was talking about that the Native Women's Shelter does and other organizations by and for Indigenous people, they're a part of this whole thriving, beautiful urban Indigenous network here in Montreal. And so I can acknowledge where I am and acknowledge that I benefit from the oppression and exploitation and displacement and land theft that colonialism has committed. I'm benefiting from genocide of Indigenous people. All of us who are non-Indigenous do benefit from that in one way or another, some more than others. People are affected by different kinds of discrimination, which are also part of colonialism, by the way. So decolonization helps eliminate all kinds of discrimination. It's good for everybody. But anyway, another tangent for another video. So I don't like the fact that I benefit from colonialism and racism, but I do. And so somebody who benefits from that, the fact that I have wages, I mean, where does the money that governments and corporations have, where do you think it comes from? As they say, it doesn't grow on trees. That money, for the most part, is from the resources and lands that were stolen from Indigenous peoples, right? So when you see all these problems happening, and by the way, it's important to look at resilience, not just problems, but anyway, that's for another video as well. This is all connected. So yes, we all benefit. It's not, people who say, oh, I'm not the one who came over and stole stuff. Well, yeah, but you're benefiting from it in the same way that if you steal somebody's house today, you kick them out of your house and you take it, and in 3 or 4 generations, your descendants get to thrive there, but the descendants of the original inhabitants are living in the street, right? Same thing, right? So, as somebody who benefits, I want to do stuff. And, I always encourage people who ask me, well, how do I get involved, to kind of avoid the white savior complex and going in and trying to save the natives or help the natives. Every time white people in particular have tried to save the natives, it's resulted in disaster, namely genocide. So, let's not do that. Let's work in solidarity with Indigenous people who are already doing the work. Trust that they know what they need and support what it is that they need. Sometimes a lot of times it's very unglamorous. You might be sweeping floors, picking up trash, helping do some legwork, and you'll never be seen. You're behind the scenes. People won't necessarily know your name, and that's okay, right? It's not supposed to be about being seen. So I wind up being seen, and sometimes people think that I do more than I do. So humbly, I do a fraction of what I could be doing, and we all have our issues, right? And I have my issues with energy and mental health and all kinds of things. I look like I have my shit together, but so I every day I try to do my best. Some days that's not much, but there's a few things that I do. Some of them are personal, and I don't really need to disclose them because it's not about being seen, and none of this is to brag. It's just to help inspire people who are like, what can I do? So what can you do? Well, the Spirit Walk is one of those things. Some folks aren't able to participate as walkers. There are other ways you can support. You can spread, if you're unable to contribute financially, you can spread the word. Just even liking my posts on Facebook will help boost them and help more people see them. So that's really appreciated. If you can give, even if it's just $5, $10, $20, $50, $100, whatever is in your means, and that comes out of your extra income beyond what you need to pay your bills and eat and all that kind of thing, that's great. You can encourage people to join and to give. You can also, sometimes people give and then they feel, okay, I can pat myself on the back and I did something great, and then forget about it for the rest of the year. You can educate yourself and educate other people. If you want some starting points, please do reach out to me. One of the things I do, I started voluntarily, but then, I wound up convincing with other people, my institution, to actually provide funds and time for this kind of thing. So I do, collect resources to share, to help educate. And so please do reach out. If you have questions that you are afraid might be hurtful to Indigenous people, you can ask fellow settler here. I'm happy to help for people who are kind of open to genuinely learning. So these are things you can do, and then once you're, self-education is really kind of the first step. And there are a lot of videos, films, blogs, artwork, scholarly works, all kinds of things that you can access. Many of them for free, that have already been created by Indigenous people, Indigenous organizations. So it's not like the information's not out there. So that's the first thing. Then, look at ways you can get involved in whatever aspects of life you're already involved in. Your workplaces, your families, your community groups, whatever it is. There's always something, even if it's just slamming down problematic things that you hear, not slamming them down to shut down dialogue, but to educate people, participate in events. There's a Google Calendar that I can share with you of all plays, festivals, all kinds of film screenings, workshops, all kinds of things you can attend either online or here in the city. It starts, every individual can do something. And again, I really feel, I know I come across as heavy-handed sometimes, but I really feel that anybody who benefits from the exploitation of others, it becomes a moral obligation to try to undo that system. Because you can say, oh, well, I don't want this. Well, okay, what can we change, right? And it starts with listening to Indigenous people and what kind of support they want and need. So I'll leave you with that. Please do, at the very least, spread the word, like the post, share it with a little comment about why you're sharing it, because that is important for your friends to know, especially if they don't know me. If you can donate, great. If you can, if you're available and you're physically able to join in the walk, either virtually like I'm doing, you don't have to do it every day, just one 5-minute walk with a picture of yourself and the hashtag. That's already something. These are little things you can do right now, today. So I'll leave you with that, and I hope you have a great day, and I'll be making another video tomorrow en français. All right, bye.